WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. No one I enjoy having a coffee, iced tea, or a carbonated drink with more than this guy.
That's a lie. You start out right away with a lie.
No. It's true, man. It's true. I miss you. You're one of the few dudes in the world that I actually say, hey, man, you want to get together? Because I don't do that much. I'm not friendly. Ask anyone. Mark Mussina is here. Do you eat crab cakes? I don't know if you do or not.
I hate crab cakes.
No. I thought you hated crab cakes. I was pretty sure. So the reason I'm not bringing you down for the Maryland Crab Cake Tour, presented by the Maryland Lottery, although dude, you are eligible to get a free Betty Boop scratch-off ticket if you need one. How are you, man? It's been a day. It's been a while. Last time I was with you, the Cowboys had a chance.
We always have a chance, buddy. Next year is our year. I'll tell you this quick story about crab cakes. When I lived in Baltimore, people would just go out to, all these crab houses. They get crabs and, they bring the paper towels and they come. And I would always be like, no, I need a menu. And she's like, wait, you're not? No, I'll get a burger. So I'd be the guy sitting over in the corner eating a burger while everyone else was cracking the crabs open. So
I think I saw you do that at the barn. Did you do that at the barn?
Everywhere. Always the outsider. That was me.
But you were at the barn enough, right? You came to the barn for some shows.
I was just thinking about, I remember seeing, I think the first time I ever saw Honor Among Thieves and Rick Allen.
Mitch Allen.
Mitch Allen.
Mitch, yep.
Yeah, Rick Allen's a drummer from
correct.
Def Leppard. Was at the barn. I think I saw them at the barn. I was just thinking about that the other day for some reason. Because you'd see him down at the horse and things like that. But I think the first time I saw him was at the barn. And obviously you did your shows over at the barn and all that stuff.
Well, Mitch's name came up actually about rock and roll belts with Led Zeppelin and John Allen a couple weeks ago. So Mitch's name, I got to get Mitch on the show. I'll do that, man. We'll talk some SR and some Honor Among Mitch and all that. I did have Mickey Coachella on this week, and he knows Mitch, so that's close enough. Mark Mussina is here. He knows Mike Mussina, and that's close enough for me. It's baseball season, dude. I reached you a couple of times at the end of football, kind of before the Super Bowl. We never got together. I think I sent a Van Halen picture or something at some point, and I got to get a Van Halen belt buckle. Pricey, Moose, pricey. So I would just say for you that this baseball stoppage and how into baseball are you? Or like now your brother's gone. Do you still have the ticket and watching 10:30 at night, watching the Dodgers play at 1 a.m? Is that still you? Because Alan and I got together 2 weeks ago. He still watches a lot of baseball. I have a lot of friends that don't watch anymore, and it's sad but true.
It's different. I don't just sit and watch baseball as much anymore because, life just gets so busy. And, coaching, when you're coaching Little League and you're at the field till 8 o'clock at night, and then by the time you get home, it's in the whatever inning, and you've either had work to do because you left work early to go coach a game, or now I'm the varsity basketball coach. I don't know if you knew that. I'm because my brother quit. So now I'm the varsity basketball
Hold on. Sounds like we got some angst here. I love brother on brother.
No, there's no like he was like his kid graduated. He'd done it for he coached for 8 or 10 years, and he was like, I'm stepping aside, and I had no desire to do it. I'd stopped coaching with him a couple years ago, and but the guy we thought was going to do it, we thought there was an assistant that was going to move up the ladder, and he said because of his work schedule he couldn't, but he wanted to stay on as an assistant. So and I didn't really want to coach my own kid because that's hard, but my son said, well, instead of having some moron maybe get it, why don't you take it? So I was just telling people, this is the first year I did not fill out a March Madness bracket. And when you're coaching high school basketball, and you're
extremely competitive. You want to win, dude. You're a Mussina. You want to win. You're not doing it for kicks and giggles just to get to the end of the year. You're trying to win every game, right?
Yes, but I watched less college basketball this year than I've ever watched, because when you're watching high school games all the time, when you're in the gym all the time, when you're watching game film, the last thing you want to do in a quiet moment is watch another basketball game. So as you get into Little League and as you get into coaching and stuff, and especially once my brother got away from it, just going home at night and watching a game. Now I'd watch the highlights, I'd follow along and, lay in bed with my phone, but just actually to sit down and watch a 9-inning game from start to finish, I really only do it now during the playoffs.
Do you know who's in the starting lineup of the Cincinnati Reds or the Cleveland
No.
Guardians? Or no, I don't either. And that's really the heartbeat of this, where you and I and Alan would sit and get mosquito bites arguing about who was going to make the All-Star team out in front of the radio station 25 years ago, and I don't want to say I miss it or don't miss it. I just feel like, and I'm here, Moose, and your brother's in the Hall of Fame and on to his life and whatever, and the Yankees can figure out what they need to do and the Orioles can figure out what they need to do. But recruiting the next group of people that are going to support all of this, I just keep saying to out loud to anybody that'll listen. If you don't want me at the games and you don't want my kid at the games, and we're here in Baltimore, my last name's Aparicio, who do you want at the games? Like who, when are you going to again recruit people back? And Moose, I shared a thing in one of my wise guy moments in the last 24 hours. I was somewhere and a friend of mine hit me and said, "Dear God," like with a text. And it was a text. It was a friend of mine, which we don't text about sports. I'm more like, that's more of a social media thing. And it was "Dear God," and it was the Orioles payroll at the bottom at 30 million, and the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Red Sox spending 280 now, and that the Orioles are at that point. It's just really kind of a sad thing here. I mean, the good news is football's alive. Well, the Ravens, Sashi Brown, there's a press conference. I'm going to NFL owners meetings this weekend, like to try to figure out what Dan Snyder's doing, what in the world the Haslam guy's thinking. And we're all talking football, but our biology, your biology, certainly in mine, given our last names and our a proximity to Cooperstown, that we should be baseball guys the rest of our life. Not that we need to know everybody in the Reds lineup, but we should be looking forward to opening day. And I don't know, man. They've kind of lost their way. And these lockouts, and your brother was involved in all of that with negotiating and all that. It's kind of tawdry at this point, when the world's at war and there's been 2 years of shutdown. The 100 days didn't make me feel any better about the sport.
No, I don't think the lockout really mattered to a lot because they say there was a lockout for 100 days, but to a fan, it's a week. The season's starting a week later, whatever it is. So, when they're locked out in January, as a fan, nobody cares. I think as sports have evolved, when you look at how the NFL has evolved and it's become much more offensive, and every year people talk about how it's harder and harder to play defense, and I agree with that. But overall, it hasn't hurt the product. The quarterbacks are still great quarterbacks, and basketball is kind of in the same way. Big men don't really, I don't want to say matter as much anymore, but it's become a guards world. It's become a shooters league. And when you look at baseball, kind of the things that they've done, just with the designated starter, basically, where you've got a reliever throwing the first inning and the loss of not all the starting pitchers, but it used to be watching the starting pitchers, and that was the anticipation of the day was so-and-so is going. And that was, all day, whether it was a good starter and you were excited, whether it was a young starter and you were curious, or whether it was a bad starter and you thought you were going to get lit up.
Or whether it was a left-hander and your righties were going to bat that night and say, it affected your lineup.
And now that we've got this, we'll just throw a reliever for the first inning to try to get him. And from a strategy standpoint, it may be good. It may be good to carry 14 relief pitchers on your roster and only have 11. But from a marketability standpoint, it's not. And the shift, as much as I can't believe that we have put in a rule to outlaw the shift, they kind of needed it because the shift was really changing baseball for the negative. And we kept saying, as normal fans who grew up playing it, well, why don't guys just learn to hit the ball the other way again? But for however many years, they've proven they're not going to hit the ball the other way again. So,
well, they've got a statistical measurement that says that's not the way to win.
Correct.
That literally, they have an MIT guy saying, it's counterintuitive, but I ran the numbers on this. Trying to hit the ball the other way where there's nobody isn't as good as you hitting launch angle and not affecting your swing. Because as Rafael Palmeiro, not Hall of Famer, once said to me, "You put me in a slump, man. You put me in a slump doing that." So trying to hit the other way was something that they never wanted to teach. Bunting. Giving it out away. We don't do that around here. Running, important when you get to first to third, but not so much when it comes to stealing because, that might cost us an out. We only have 27 of those. So, all of that played into all of this leading the sport in a different way that wound up being, to your point, displeasing to the eyes.
I agree. That's very well said. To those of us who grew up loving the game, and to see it this way, it's way different. And again, maybe to the younger generation, they don't care, but
I don't know how the younger generation could possibly be interested in it, given other things they could be interested in.
Well, it is the thing about the younger generation, which is different, is how it is presented to them. Like, we are of the age where This Week in Baseball was like the greatest show on earth because you could see highlights. But then Sports Center came in and Baseball Tonight. And those of us growing up in our generation, we watch Sports Center every day.
We knew every Chris Berman nickname because he made it fun.
Yes. Now this generation doesn't even watch TV. So they watch YouTube and they watch TikToks and they watch. So my son, actually, who is a freshman in high school now, he is a good, knowledgeable baseball person, but he became that way playing video games. He didn't grow up like I grew up, and T-ball. I learned on a ground ball to short, you look the guy back and you throw to first, because that's what happened on TV. He learned this stuff watching or playing video games. And when I was trying to coach the press this year in basketball, and I was talking about deep guys in their rotations, he said to me, "Dad, just tell them it's like the Tampa 2. They all know Madden. They all play Madden. Just tell them, just do it like the Tampa 2. So they get to this stuff backwards, but then they end up watching the highlights on YouTube and they all watch it on their phone. So I don't think they're not absorbing it. And when you ask them about who these players are, they can tell you who they play for in whatever sport, but they just get it a different way. They don't sit down and watch the whole game. They just watch the highlights and watch the things through YouTube. So it's different. It is very different.
The game's very hard to watch. Baseball is very hard to sit for 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, 6 months out of the year for one team to be interested, even if your team's good.
Well, and I think I've told people this a long time, and I agree with you 100%. Whatever you're watching, you can watch a movie and not really, and it can be an ensemble cast you've never heard of and you don't care. But other than that, if you tell someone who's a really big football fan, but you put on, Evansville versus Illinois State, you're not going to watch unless you have a vested interest. You need to know the characters involved. That's why the NFL is such a big deal. That's why for all these years, baseball was a big deal.
It's one of the NBA's strength is that they only have a couple players on the court, and a couple of them are really good, and they always have 20 or 30 stars, and culture's involved with that, and hip hop and music, and there's something about that with the NBA. They don't wear helmets. Your brother would always say he'd get recognized half as much with that his hat on because the hat was part of the uniform, right? Football, they wore helmets, so so that was one of the things about marketing them. But when it comes to marketing and making kids aware of this, I want to take a deeper dive. Mark Mussina is our guest. You're coaching young people. You're giving me all the TikTok and all that. And look, I see you with your kids and torturing them with music, and Meatloaf dies and they don't take a proper day off and pay the proper respects to Marvin a day that you and I would. But seeing that, dude, I'm divorced from that. I have no idea what kids are doing. And when I watch it, it's not that I don't understand it. It's just hard to get kids' attention. It's hard to sit and talk to a 14 or 15-year-old and get them off their phone. And it's even harder to get the 53-year-old guy off.
Yes. I mean, it is. I will say this. You'll get a kick out of this story. So the day Meatloaf passes, I go to practice and we're stretching. And I said, before we had 20, so we probably had 20, 21 or 22 kids dressed that day for practice. And I said, before today, how many of you knew who Meatloaf was? Not the food, but the singer. 4 hands went up, and one of them was my kid.
20%. All right.
And I said, you people have terrible parents. And so the next day during warmups,
when I hear you say that, you channel the White Shadow. That's so what Coach Howard would have said, right? I mean, literally, right?
So the next day during warm-ups, the kids are like, "Are we gonna hear Meatloaf?" And I said, "Because I picked the warm-up music, because I'm not listening to this stuff that's unlistenable."
Did you play
And
Bat Out of Hell? Please tell me you played Bat Out of
we
Hell.
came out to Bat Out of Hell. That's what we came out to.
And they probably, I mean, that song's great. I mean, that song's exhilarating.
I'll tell you, I got more compliments from the old people who were like, "Yay!" So we did play Bat Out of Hell. You know, I mean, kids are different, but kids are good. They're not. I don't think kids are that different. I just think their world is so much different, and they deal with so much other stuff that we didn't have to deal with. And the
like a
funny
plague.
thing is,
Let's start with that. Like a plague. Like,
well,
you can't kiss her, you can't touch her, you can't touch him. Put the mask on. Go in your bedroom. Get on the Zoom, dude. That's a whole different life, man. I wouldn't have wanted that to happen to me when I was 15.
no, I mean, and not only that, but just the whole social media thing of things you put out and things that you say, and kids getting fights with kids and as adults, we keep saying, thank God when I was an angry 15-year-old, I didn't have this thing that I could broadcast to the world that then I would have to live with forever. So, there's lots of different challenges that they deal with in lots of ways. The world is, we make fun of them too about how much easier it is for them to do research papers because all they need is their phone, where we had to actually go to the library and use that Reader's Periodical Guide to die, whatever it was. And, but yeah, there's a lot of hard stuff for them too. But in general, just to deal with them, I think they're older. Obviously through phones.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll is all available, right? Literally.
Absolutely. Who knows? Like, and I've told
the F word is there, and you don't have to wait to read Catcher in the Rye to find it, right?
No, that's what I've said. I was like, I have no idea what my kid has seen. I have no idea what my kid has heard. I can only imagine. And I mean, just think of what, we were climbing through our friends' garage, their garages looking for their dad's Playboys. Our kids, they just pulled out of their pocket, looking at it at lunch. And the thing too is when people are like, you need to check your kids' phones. What are they seeing on other kids' phones? Like, you can't chase this one down. So you just have to kind of try to guide them around and hope they get it. But oh my God, I can only imagine what my 15-year-old has seen. So from that aspect, it's crazy to us, but it's normal to them. So, and they aren't like, there's a lot of good kids out there. There really are.
Mark Mussina is here. He is a basketball coach, the white shadow of Montoursville, the mighty Warriors. You're not Warriors anymore? Did you have to change your name?
No, we are still Warriors, because we just joke about that too. A couple schools, like a school 10 minutes away from us is the Indians. A school an hour. The school that knocked us out of the playoff is also the Indians. So I think there are some that would be on the list first, because I was like, I don't think Warrior is negative. You can be all kinds of, a Warrior, and I don't know. We'll see.
Nobody's better than the Ultimate Warrior. We know that. In and out of the
I was thinking the Road Warriors are the ones that came to my mind, but yeah, the Ultimate Warrior. But
Warriors come out to play. Remember that one? Yeah, movie. You remember that one?
No.
Remember you ever saw the movie The Warriors with the baseball bats?
I don't think so.
Oh wow, man! The Eagles song, Joe Walsh song, "In the City," was the soundtrack. Google the movie The Warriors. It's a cult classic. You will love it. If you watch it and stay with it, you'll love it. For what it is, 1970, violent, gang-related New York activity set to a disco meets rock and roll 1979 soundtrack. Pretty good, dude.
Sounds like my childhood. Violent, gang-related, disco era. That's all. It's it.
That's the way it was in Williamsport. Mark Mussina is here.
Baby.
Right. I guess I called you not to talk about all this, but I love doing all that. We could talk about rock and roll and who's playing Hershey Park this summer, and when Springsteen's going to get back on the road and all that. But football is still at the center, right? Like, I'm sure you watch basketball. You're coaching basketball. I don't watch hockey anymore. I sort of just decided I'd watched enough hockey. I mean, there was a point when I've turned 50 doing Baltimore Positive. I'm like, I turned the corner on collecting things, having things, doing the same old things. I'm eating new things, going new places, doing all that stuff. Yet the NFL is still the thing that is the glue for most of us. Most of the people that have been in my world, I can ring them up and they know Lamar's the quarterback. They know he was hurt. They know the Ravens are. And the offseason news, whether it's Russell Wilson's going to Denver, Aaron Rodgers is going nowhere, Ben Roethlisberger's going home. Tom Brady's coming back. All of these things have like these seminal moments in these days. And then the Ravens sign a safety. And then the Ravens sign a lineman. Then the Ravens sign a pass rusher. And then he leaves. And then they sign a lineman. So, and now we're going to have a draft. Baseball's going to start playing, and the draft's going to happen, and the draft's still going to overshadow that for the 20th year in a row. Football has really become this glue that I can talk to you 12 months a year, and it's the damnedest thing because the off season is more interesting than sometimes the Sundays themselves.
Well, the way, and football has done it well, but football is so much more, not palatable might not be the word, digestible, because it's only one game a week. And then you can pick up the nuances, like yesterday, Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins is a 5-second news flash, but then you can talk about it. And to be, in baseball, when it was at its high point, it was the national pastime. There was no television. And as we grew up with this, and there was, it was something there every day. But to know 30 teams and to know what's going on every day is a challenge. That's why baseball is still such a regional game where you can have really, really good, Oriole fans who have no idea what's going on in Cincinnati, other than when Cincinnati comes to town. And they're like, and then they brush up and then they learn for a couple of days and they're like, oh, look, they have this kid.
By the way, that's how I learned minor league hockey as a Skipjacks fan. And as a reporter, the New Haven Nighthawks would come to town and say, oh, who do they got that's got 18 goals and 12 assists right now? And who should I be looking out for? And who's got the penalty minutes? Who's going to be the fighter? Who's going to, you just look, and that's how you get to know names on rosters, right? And the engagement level of the NFL, and it's crazy. Some people like them because they wear purple underwear. Some people think Mark Andrews is cute. Some people have a crush on John Harbaugh. I mean, I see it on my Facebook, but people are engaged and they're waiting for the game. And even if they don't understand the game that much, they're watching the game. They're not following the game on their app or only watching the highlights. People watch the games front to back. They don't leave early by and large, the way I lived downtown for 20 years and would watch people go get the bobblehead and leave before the game starts, right? And the engagement level of the NFL this time of the year, as a guy, and dude, I've known you more than half my life at this point, but when the Ravens first came here, going back to 96, 7, 8, 9, you were part of my life. We did these events. We held the nerds who loved the draft, who paid attention to Mel Kiper, Joel Bushbaum, or our lads, or me, or Phil Savage. The whole world's plugged into that at some point. If you love the league, you might not be buying the Sporting News draft guide or whatever, but by the time draft week rolls around, if you like the league a little bit, you want to know who's your coach and who's doing this and what's going that. The league has a way to come in, get your attention in free agency, and then, drift a little bit. This weekend, there'll be some news at the NFL owners meetings. They don't turn the lights out, and the lights never go out. And baseball seems to really get off on turning the lights out in November and December and like the leagues want to shut down. The NFL has found a way that it never turns off.
But again, I think it goes back to the fact that, you talk about people watch the games from front to back, and they do, because it's an event, because it's 3 hours a day, it's 3 hours a week. If they had to watch, if the Ravens were on 18 days out of 19, there are lots of people who would not watch, especially if they just played them yesterday. They just played Kansas City again. It is such a time investment to be a diehard baseball fan that, and now again, with your phone, it has made it so much easier to catch up. But it is when you have other things going on, it is hard to be there every night after night after night after night. It's a lot easier to be a football fan.
But if the Cowboys would have dealt for Deshaun Watson the other day, and you being Mr. Cowboy fan, it would have been a tectonic plate shifting, and certainly for the Browns fans, it was. Every fan base has that moment in an off season where something good or bad happens, and it can happen anytime. And that's why I'm on Twitter and why we're reporting. Mark Mussina is here. What do you make of the competitive balance in the NFL and where your Cowboys are and where the Washington Commanders, I'm getting the names all right now, the offseason of all of this and trying to put these teams together, we follow it 24/7 here in regard to the Ravens. You're a Cowboy guy. You're invested in this.
I think we were just talking about this the other day when one of the trades, I think it was the Russell Wilson trade. I think one of my interesting thoughts of the league is I didn't like Denver's trade for Russell Wilson because I think their division's too strong right now with Kansas City and with San Diego. Did Denver give up too much right now trying to win in a division that they probably can't win anyway? And the Raiders are good too. So whereas Seattle, on the other hand, kind of gave it away, stockpiled their picks, because Seattle's like, with Arizona and San Francisco and the Rams, we're the worst team in our division right now. And we're going to be the worst team in our division. So let's stockpile some picks. Let's suck for a couple years. And 3 or 4 years from now, because these dynasties last it's so hard to stay good in the NFL for a long time. As they start losing players, as they can't afford to re-sign players, then Seattle's going to come up. But you need to have an organization and you need to have a general manager that is comfortable enough that they know, hey, we can bide our time and we'll be there. And I think Denver kind of panicked a little bit. Now, my son said to me they won 7 or 8 games last year and they didn't have a quarterback. So now you add a quarterback and maybe they are a playoff team, and that could be true. But it is.
And they haven't won there in a while, right? So we're getting on a couple of years now for Peyton Manning and all that. And the antsiness, most of the Ravens are trying to give tickets away here. They're on my timeline all day long on Facebook trying to sell tickets. I mean, they got a star and trying to get people to the games. There's a thing in Seattle's strong, dude. I don't know if you've been to Seattle lately. It is a Seahawk town. Everything's at gangrene, ugly, day-glow color that's everywhere. And I think trying to make that community inroad in that kind of a place, the Broncos didn't want to be in last place for 3 more years because they experienced that. And it's no fun being around there when they're losing. They're one of those places that losing's unacceptable there. Seattle, will find out. Seattle was never any good. Now they've been good. We're going to find out whether they can sustain being bad for a couple of years because they haven't been bad in a long time. Not really bad.
And that's it's an interesting aspect of Baltimore because of the state of Ohio. The Ravens were always one of the 2 best teams in the division. And now that Cincinnati's obviously good and Cleveland is closer. So, the Ravens just, they just showed up and they were at least in second. And now what's going to happen from year to year where the division is so thick that, the playoffs isn't like a kind of a foregone conclusion. So it'll be interesting to see if the Baltimore fan base, if they go through a couple down years and a rebuild process, how that fan base will react. Because like I tell people, like around here, it's easy to be a Steelers fan. In a terrible year, you still have a winning record. Tomlin is never under 500. It was easy for all those years to be a Patriots fan because you're in the Super Bowl every other year.
Try being a Jets fan. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I got you. Yeah.
Exactly. So we'll see. And I don't know, did the Dolphins give away too much to get Tyreek Hill? Because I said to my son, you still got to block and tackle. You can have all the skill you want, but you still have to block and tackle. And I don't think Tua is an NFL star.
Well, we're going to find that out. My poor friend, John, I'll be down in Florida. John and Scott, my buddies that are Dolphins fans, they're just shaking their heads. Anybody that's a Browns fan, you're a Cowboys fan. You should be shaking your head, but you bought into the cult. I don't know what else there is to say all these years in.
They changed the schedule just so we couldn't go 8-8 again. Because we found a way to go 8-8 all the time. So they added an extra game. Now we need to tie one just to figure out how to go 8-8. So.
7-10, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Mark Mussina has been my friend for going on 3 decades now. It's always good to catch up with you and visit. Hopefully we get a rock and roll show in here soon.
I was going to say, do you have one? I saw you just did Sticks. What's next? Do you have one?
I'm looking forward to Tesla at M3 on May 6th. Come on down. Come down. You haven't been to the new Merriweather? Have you been to the new Merriweather?
Wait. There's
new
a
Merriweather? Dude, I gotta go. But you and I, come on down. Come on down and see the new Merriweather, okay?
Okay.
It'll make you cry. It's so beautiful. New Merriweather.
Really?
It's unbelievable. Google it. Mark Mussina is here. He's been my friend. I'm taking him to Merriweather. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.